Mic check 1 2. It's the Y2K collector, and the last mini console that we got was back in 2022, and that was the Sega Genesis or the Mega Drive Mini 2. And in my opinion, that was definitely top five of the mini consoles, even though there weren't that many that came out. I want to say that the Sega Genesis Mini 2 was probably in the top three of mini consoles that we've seen, just based on the game selection. You got Sega CD games on there, you got Sega Genesis games on there, you got some import games on there, and it was a pretty wide selection. So that was a really, really cool one, and I'm glad that Sega did that because I think it was a much better follow up on the original Sega Genesis Mini. And of course, we know about the other minis that came out. You got the NES Classic, the Super Nintendo Classic, the PlayStation Classic. I've already mentioned the Sega Genesis minis. But then you also had a couple of offshoots like the Neo Geo mini here that you see here. And then you also had the Turbo Graphics mini or the PC Engine mini as well. So, you had a few different mini consoles that came out. And around this time of year, I'm always reminded of mini consoles because those felt like such novelty items when they came out, even though some of them are pretty darn expensive now. I think a brand new TurboGrafx Mini is probably somewhere between $250 and $300, which I mean, I guess if you've wanted to play the TurboGrafx and you never had a chance to, that would probably be one of the better ways to do it, just because I believe that mini console has pretty much all of the top tier TurboGrafx games on it, including games like Bonk's Adventure, Lords of Thunder. I mean, there's just a whole bunch on there that to me make it worthwhile. But every time this year comes around, I always think to myself, are mini consoles cooked? Like, is it over for them? Are we gonna see any other mini consoles get produced, or is it pretty much a wrap? Like, we're not gonna get anything like that. And I always love to speculate on which consoles I think would be amazing to get, in the future. But we all know that we're more than likely not gonna get them. Now, a few of the ones that come to my mind, of course, the Sega Saturn Mini. God, I would love to see a Sega Saturn Mini. I think that that would be such an amazing mini console just because there were so many great games on the Sega Saturn that a lot of people just haven't had a chance to experience because it wasn't a very popular console. But games like Nights into Dreams, Astal, Burning Rangers, the Panzer Dragoon games, even though those games are available in other formats, but Die Hard Arcade, Bomberman Saturn, just so many games that I think were really cool on the Sega Saturn. I think it would be awesome to be able to get a mini console like that. That's a long shot though. Um, and honestly, I can't see Nintendo making any other mini consoles. Like, why would they? They've already transitioned all of their retro or legacy games onto their online platform with the Switch Online. And I guess if you're really itching for that nostalgic physical feel, then you would just pick up one of their many controllers that goes along with the online experience, whether it's the Super Nintendo Switch controller, the NES controller, the N64 controller. I believe they came out with the GameCube controller. And pretty soon they're going to be coming out with a Virtual Boy, or a Virtual Boy shell is really what it's going to be, because it's really not going to be a Virtual Boy. It's going to be a device that you're able to connect your Switch to and get somewhat of that Virtual Boy experience. But nevertheless, Nintendo isn't going to really be making any more mini consoles because that would ultimately cannibalize what they're trying to do with their Switch Online service. The two would cancel each other out. So I don't see Nintendo making any more mini consoles, but I would love to see like a Jaguar Mini. Why can't we get a Jaguar Mini? Right? I think a Jaguar Mini would be pretty sick. What other consoles could I think of? I mean, like I said, an N64 Mini would be cool, but that's a long shot. I don't think they're gonna do that. Um, but they could get adventurous with it. Why not a 3DO Mini? Why not a there's so many other offshoot consoles that they could try. I just think that the thing with it is popularity, right? And I think once it gets to a certain level of obscurity with some of these like mini consoles, I think for the companies, they start to just see diminishing returns just because there's not enough people who would have the nostalgia for some of those consoles to warrant, a high volume of purchases. But there are the diehard gamers out there that would love some of those mini consoles. And honestly, I think some of the more obscure ones would actually wind up being more expensive in the aftermarket than like something like a SNES Mini, just because of the type of person who would be buying those mini consoles. Kind of like what you're seeing with the Turbo Graphics, and what you were seeing for a while with the Genesis Mini too, because that was also going for around 200 bucks. So all in all, I think that the mini console idea was really cool. I don't know if we're completely past it and we're just never going to see, mini consoles again. Are they completely cooked? I don't know. But I think another thing that would be a very cool novelty item is if they did mini handhelds, kind of like how they did the micro Game Gear. I don't know how many of you have ever seen that, but they do have these micro Game Gear consoles that are like the size of a keychain, and you can play like actual games on them in like full color, like LCD screen, like they look like a vibrant like screen where you can play the games on them. And I think that that was a really cool idea. I haven't really seen anyone else do that, but think about how cool that would be to have a Game Boy Pocket that you could play that probably was the size of a keychain that had built-in games into it. Now, obviously, you're not gonna have like a full-on gaming session with something like that. But if it's on your keychain and you're on the train or you're on the bus and you want to pop it out to do a little quick, simple gaming, or maybe you want to play like an RPG on something like that, something that isn't too demanding on like button pressing precision. I think that that would be something cool. And I'm waiting for them to really come out with that set of kind of like retro novelty items. I think some cool mini handheld consoles would be great. I think a Game Boy Advance Mini, an original Game Boy Mini. They've already got the Game Gear Minis, but Neo Geo Pocket Mini, right? Something like that. I think would be really cool, and I think it would grab the attention of retro enthusiasts and gamers alike. But I don't know. Maybe we've completely moved past the novelty era of gaming. I want to say no. I don't believe that we have. But just between all of the new emulation devices that are coming out, between all of the moves to online platforms, and just everything new that's coming out, these items just seem more what's the word I'm looking for, like they're just not going to happen, like we're not going to see them anymore, and maybe they are actually cooked. But let me know what you think down in the comments. Do you think mini consoles are cooked? Do you think we can expect to see any additional ones in the future? I'm interested to know your thoughts. Let me know down in the comments. I'll catch you in the next one. It's the Y2K Collector. Take it easy.